So I believe the participant list has stopped going up now, so we'll begin the presentation. So just to start by saying this webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded to the UKRI website on the Funding Finder page that this call is advertised on. So today's webinar is going to be covering our recently launched call, which is Enhancing Equality, Diversity and Inclusion in BBSRC funded networks. And my name is Emily Finnegan, and I'm from the Skills and Careers Unit at BBSRC. And I'm joined here today by my colleague, Dr. Claire Bunu, who will be here to answer any questions you might have during the Q&A session. So to start the webinar, I will be covering an introduction to BBSRC's EDI action plan, and I'll then go on to a background to the call and the call scope. We'll then move on to a section on who can apply, so this will cover everything regarding eligibility. I'll then move on to what we're looking for. So this is the type of activities that you can fund via this project that we're hoping to fund via this call. So then I'll move on to how to apply and the application questions. And then I'll move on to the application assessment process. Once I've finished the presentation, we'll then move into a Q&A session. So throughout the webinar, please do ask any questions that you might have in the Q&A function rather than the chat. And we'll aim to reply to all of your questions either in writing over the Q&A or orally during the Q&A session. And any questions that you do ask will include in the FAQ document, which will be uploaded to the UKRI website alongside the recording of this webinar. We'll stop for a short break after that, and then we're aiming to go into a short networking session. So this is for anybody who wishes to identify potential collaborators or anybody who's planning to apply as a project lead. And it's essentially just to give you an opportunity to introduce yourselves and talk to other people who are interested in this call. This part of the webinar won't be recorded, and we'll set up breakout rooms and we'll ask that you indicate an area of interest that you have, and we'll hopefully set up the breakout rooms to reflect this, and you can join as and when you are ready to do so. So to start, I'd just like to give you a bit of background about BBSRC's EDI action plan. So BBSRC published the action plan in March 2023, and EDI is embedded within BBSRC's overall strategic delivery plan. And this action plan also links to UKRI EDI strategy and its 4 strategic objectives, which are listed here. So number 1, to foster a world-class research and innovation system by everyone for everyone. Number 2, include a diversity of people and ideas through our funding and partnerships. Create a more inclusive and fair organisational culture where everybody can contribute and participate and feel valued and respected. And then advance and grow knowledge and capability to support a thriving research and innovation system by being a creative, evidence-based and evidence-informed organisation. So beneath objectives 2 and 3, you can see the actions listed in our EDI action plan. And these are the objectives that this call is hopefully going to help us achieve. So we're investing in projects via this call to understand EDI challenges and work towards removing barriers to participation. And the projects that we plan to support with this call will then hopefully facilitate the sharing and promoting of best practice. And through the development of new collaborations, and as a result of this call, we also hope to stimulate discussion within our community as well. So to provide a little bit more background to how this call came about, so BBSRC has also conducted quite significant data analyses of both HESA data, so Higher Education Statistic Agency data, and census data, and we have concluded that there is underrepresentation across several different groups. So we are committed to tackling underrepresentation in the biosciences, and to do so, we consulted our dedicated EDI expert advisory group on how to best approach the issue. And the EAG has recommended that BBSRC facilitate the communication and engagement between individuals who identify as being part of an ethnic minority group or other underrepresented community. And to do that, we've decided to support existing networks through this pilot scheme. So through this call, we hope to support members of the bioscience community who identify as being part of these underrepresented groups through peer support, networking, and any other related activities that are facilitated by their research networks. So we've gone with research networks because they're well established and efficiently run by network managers who hopefully have a comprehensive understanding of their respective communities. And I think it's really important to highlight at this stage that this call isn't just about identifying challenges. The focus of this call is to find solutions and to engage with your members. And these solutions will hopefully be informed by lived experience, and the members of your network will hopefully be part of identifying these solutions as well. So the scope of the call, I've talked a lot about underrepresented or minoritized groups, and these can include but aren't limited to individuals belonging to a protected characteristic group, such as ethnic minority group or groups, women, individuals who are disabled, and individuals who are part of the LGBTQ community. But it could also include individuals with caring responsibilities or other communities who have requested more support from your network. And we do expect our networks to have some sort of comprehensive understanding of their communities, ideally quantified by membership data. And I'll cover this a little bit more in the activities section of so what activities you can fund. But essentially, if you don't have that data yet, this project could fund data scoping to inform those decisions. And I think it might be useful for you all to have a little bit more context in the form of examples. So BBSRC have recently awarded 3 similar projects to our strategically funded institutes through a Connecting Culture Fund. And the Connecting Culture Fund had a total fund of about £200,000, and we successfully funded the following 3 projects at £50,000 each. And I believe a 4th is in development and may be awarded at a later date. So the goal of this project, the Connecting Culture Fund, was to support BBSRC-sponsored institutes to foster cross-institutional activities and encourage best practice sharing across the institutes to further their research culture ambitions. We also wanted to support knowledge exchange between the institutes and other research organisations, such as universities, on what works within the research culture space in the biosciences. So we funded these 3 projects, so Understanding and Valuing and Celebrating Neurodiversity, which was led by the John Innes Centre. And this was a plan to deliver training to all the institute staff about neurodiversity, including the types of neurodiversity, the strengths and challenges that these individuals face and have. And it had the goal of creating a more inclusive environment. And following on from this training package, a network of support was also going to be developed for those individuals who are neurodiverse. We also funded a cross-institute mentoring scheme, which was led by the Pirbright Institute. So this mentoring scheme was across all the institutions, was open to all different career stages and for all colleagues across the institutes, with the goal of providing guidance and networking opportunities for these staff members. And then finally, which is quite relevant to the data scoping element that I mentioned before, we funded an evidence and metrics project, which was understanding mechanisms and best practice for evidencing and reporting on research culture and equity, diversity and inclusion objectives. So this was led by Roslyn, and they essentially planned to review the existing data collection and data collection methods used for charts such as Athena Swan, and then also assess what sort of management methods are existing, so what sort of ways they're storing their data. And essentially they were aiming to identify best practice, which could then be shared with all the other institutes. So I'm mentioning these examples to provide potentially some inspiration for you as to what activities you could fund through this call. So we aim to fund between 4 and 8 impactful projects, and obviously the smaller number will hopefully allow us to engage with you much more closely. And this is a pilot activity to understand how these projects can be awarded and implemented in the wider research community. So the reason that's the reason we're funding only between 4 and 8 projects, so we can have that closer engagement, and we want to see how this pilot activity lands with the community. So who can apply? This opportunity is aimed at existing networks currently in receipt of BBSRC funding. So this could be 100% of your funding or only a small portion of it. And networks that are co-funded by UKRI councils are eligible to apply as project lead or co-leads, as long as BBSRC is one of them. So if you are an existing network, you need to have that funding in place until the 31st of March 2025. And this is just simply to ensure that you're able to deliver on your proposed project during the lifetime of the network. We do encourage collaboration, so we encourage you to collaborate with other funded networks where possible as a consortia application. And this is to ensure the strongest application, so you can share infrastructure and ideas to create that strong application. And then project partners, so anybody who would like to be involved but isn't eligible to apply as a project or co-lead are encouraged to submit an expression of interest as a project partner. So we encourage the networks to invite project partners to build that stronger application again. And we've had quite a few queries already about who can apply and what we mean by a definition of a network. So We do fund a huge range of networks across our remit, and for the purpose of this call, this can be interpreted as well as a consortium of researchers, research technical professionals, and/or research organisations working together to advance understanding in a particular field. So typically, the networks will be directed by a network lead or a project lead, or previously known as a principal investigator, and then the network activities will be organised by a dedicated network manager. And we haven't specified a network size, but the network does need to be large enough to build a network of underrepresented people within your community that you'd like to support. And as I said, if you don't fall under this sort of definition, there is always the option to be a project partner. And if in doubt, we do encourage anybody who has any eligibility queries to submit an expression of interest, which I'll cover later today. So we are also aiming to use a flexible leadership model that allows for one or more project leads to lead the grant, and you don't need to be an existing job share arrangement to apply on this basis. So we're hoping that this flexible model can make this opportunity more inclusive and enable the leadership team to bring different knowledge, skills, and experience to the table. And if you do opt to go for this flexible approach, you should choose one of the project leads organisations to be responsible for submitting the grant application and administering the grant should you be successful. And given our current infrastructure, the UKRI funding service, only one project lead will be able to edit and submit the grant proposal. So within that leadership team, we also recognise that delivering this project might require some additional time from the network manager. So to help disseminate these funds and deliver the project, we do allow you to invite a member of the network to provide additional administrative support. And if you identify this individual during the planning stages of this application, you can invite this individual to be a researcher co-lead on the project. This individual will need to be based at the same organisation as the project lead and/or co-lead, though. We will fund the salary for this individual, but only the salary, so we won't be able to cover overheads, but we will fund 100% of this individual's salary. And I think it's important to mention at this stage that you could potentially invite an eligible early career researcher or a research technical professional within your community to be this individual to help provide that administrative support where possible. So I've spoken a lot about project partners. So a project partner is a collaborating organisation who will have an integral role in the proposed research, or in this case, proposed activities. This may include direct, cash, or indirect in-kind contributions, such as expertise, staff time, or use of facilities or infrastructure. And the purpose of the project partners is to include individuals or organisations who might have specialist expertise or understanding of the challenges faced by a particular group and/or expertise in supporting these groups through the activities. So as I said, they might just have facilities that they can offer and in-kind contributions. And they may also have a community of individuals themselves that they may like to support but aren't eligible to apply as a project or co-lead. So a project partner could be another network or anyone with a professional interest in this call, anybody with particular expertise, someone with in-kind contributions to make, such as use of facilities. So this can be interpreted quite widely. So what we're looking for, so these are the type of activities that you could fund through this call, and I hope that my example of the Connecting Culture Fund will offer some inspiration too, but here are a few ideas. So we are expecting that you identify your own challenges within the EDI space, but as I said before, this call isn't just about identifying challenges. The goal of this call is to help you identify solutions and opportunities to engage with members of your network. And this impact can be achieved in lots of different ways, such as scholarships, so you could cover the individuals' conference fees and travel costs. You could fund awards, so this could be aimed at members of your network to spotlight their achievements. You could fund workshops or a mentoring scheme, as I mentioned before. You could set up a dedicated website that is dedicated to the EDI initiatives associated with your project. You could also invite experts to come and talk to your network members through lectures and seminars. You could establish an expert working group to help advise you on how you fund activities in this area and identify your strategic priorities for the wider network. You could fund lots of different networking events. You could fund secondment support, so travel and substance for an individual, training opportunities and knowledge exchange activities, and equipment can be costed onto this grant, such as and also consumables such as leaflets, banners, and posters. And then, as I mentioned before, your call could also include evidence building, such as data scoping and surveys. So as I mentioned before, the Rosalind Institute project, which was all about identifying best practice. Similarly, you could fund surveys and data scoping activities as part of this project. So before I move on, I just wanted to reiterate the key details. So the duration of this award is a minimum of 3 months and can be up to 12 months. And the projects must start by the 1st of October 2024. So the full economic cost of your project can be up to £100,000. The minimum award amount is £50,000, and BBSRC will fund 100% of the FEC. So we're able to do this as long as all of the costs are allocated under the exceptions tab, including those requests for additional admin support. And consultation is an incredibly important aspect of this call, and we encourage you to engage with your network members during the preparation of this call. Or if you don't engage with them during the preparation of this call, you need to specify in your application when you do plan to engage with your community during the lifetime of the grant. And we expect the networks to embed EDI within all the activities they plan to support via these funds. So, as I said, you're expected to engage in an active dialogue to ensure that the minoritized and underrepresented communities within your network are involved in discussing the short, medium, and long-term challenges within the equality, diversity, and inclusion space, identifying the shared and individual challenges that the networks face, and identifying the opportunities to engage with minoritized and underrepresented groups, with the goal of tackling any identified challenges and strengthening the network through diversity of thought, skills, and expertise. I think it's important to note the activities that we will not be able to fund. So we will not be able to fund PhD or MSc stipends as part of this call. So the call is aimed at existing networks who are already in receipt of BBSRC funding, and therefore we're not able to cover overheads, estate costs, or salaries beyond that of additional admin support. However, as I said, this will be funded at 100% under exceptions. I'm then going to go on to how you can apply for this opportunity. So this funding opportunity has 2 stages, an expression of interest and a full proposal stage. I will cover the expression of interest in more detail, but I just want to say this stage is not mandatory. The full proposal will be submitted by the UK Research and Innovation Funding Service, and you can't apply on the Joint Electronic Submission Service known as JES. The nominated project lead is responsible for completing the application. However, we do expect all the team members and the project partners to contribute to the application. Only the lead research organisation can submit the application to UKRI, and they will be the sole partner in receipt of the funding. It's important to add here that you need to adhere to any internal deadlines that your institution may have and contact your research office during the development of this application if necessary. So the expression of interest. We do encourage all of our applicants to submit an expression of interest. As I said, this stage is entirely optional, but it is designed to consume as little of your time as possible. I have had a couple of queries as to where to find the expression of interest, so I apologise for not making that more clear. And you can find this on the Funding Finder page, at the bottom of the page in the additional information section. Here is where you'll find the expression of interest Word document, and you'll also find our Equality Impact Assessment too. So if you do have an interest in being a project partner, please do submit an expression of interest. So when you do so, you'll be asked for some basic information. Your name, your organisation, if relevant, the affiliated network, and your network's details. We'll then also ask what sort of areas of interest you have with regards to the call or priority areas within your network. Within this box, please also include any additional information about, if you are a project partner, what you could offer in terms of in-kind or cash contributions, and any additional information that you think is relevant. The EOI is designed to help us determine what applications to expect at the full stage, and this is to help us during the panel building element of this call, so to make sure that we have the right experts to assess your applications. And we will also be using the expression of interest to help facilitate collaborations wherever possible. But as I said, this is not a mandatory part of the process, and any collaborations that we do suggest aren't mandatory. So I keep saying it's not mandatory. However, we do want to fund a small number of networks and a small number of projects that will have as wide a reach as possible, and therefore any collaborations are intended to make full applications as strong as possible. We do ask that your expression of interest is submitted in a PDF format if possible, and by the 21st of May. And this is just to ensure that if we do suggest any collaborations, that you have enough time to then submit the full proposal with those collaborations in place. And please do submit those expressions of interest to the EDI Network's call dedicated inbox, which is here and is also on the Funding Finder webpage. So I just want to go through the application questions. So all of this information is available on that Funding Finder page. However, I think it might be useful to go through some of the details in a little bit more. So the application details section is used to help select the most appropriate panel introducers for your application during the panel assessment. And this summary is often put onto external facing websites such as Gateway to Research. So we do ask that you don't include any confidential or sensitive information that you're not happy to be put on these websites. And please also make it suitable for a variety of readers, such as the general public, funders, and other members of the community. Please then describe your work in terms of the aims and objectives, your priority areas, any challenges that this project addresses, the role of beneficiaries, such as members of your network who will benefit from this call, the collaborators, so any sort of project partners and collaborations that you've established, and then how you're going to manage the award. So as I said, this will be on Gateway to Research, and this is the purpose of the funding, the word count as well. So anything over the word count that I've specified on the UKRI funding system, anything beyond that is just going to be excluded. So that's why we have that word count. So the core team, here is where you list the members of your team and assign them roles. As I said, we are piloting a flexible leadership model that allows for more than one project lead, but obviously you need to nominate one individual who's going to represent the team and submit the application. And then all the project co-leads will be the representatives of any other ROs or networks involved in the partnership. So your vision. What are you hoping to achieve with your proposed work? So this is where you focus on what you hope to achieve, essentially, and this wording is exactly from the Funding Finder, so please do read this in careful detail. And this is the same information that is going to be shared with our panel members as well. So we have both the standard wording for this question, which is present on all funding TFS applications, so the UKRI funding service. And for more clarification, the standard wording could be interpreted as such. So number one, why does your project stand out and why is it important? How will this project help you understand your network's community more? And how are you bringing awareness to the challenges you have identified, and what solutions do you think this project will offer? What challenges have been identified and how does this project fit into your network's activities? How will your project impact the people within your network and the way they conduct research? And how will you consult your network and how will you engage with them during the lifetime of this grant? So the standard wording and the additional bullet points that we've included in this section can overlap and can be answered together. So the approach, this is where you specify the types of activities that you plan to support to deliver your proposed vision. And as I said, all of this information is on the Funding Finder, but essentially you need to demonstrate access to the appropriate services, evidence of co-creation and user engagement. So this is the consultation period, and provide a detailed and comprehensive project plan, including milestones and timelines. Please do include any additional information on EDI data. So this can also be covered in the ethics and responsible research and innovation section. However, if this is going to be the main element of your project, so if the entirety of your project is going to be a data scoping exercise, then I think it's important that you make reference to this in the approach section, of course. You need to explain how any partnerships are going to be planned and managed, explain how any partnerships will enable stakeholders to work together, outline any future plans for sustaining the partnership. And then, of course, as I said, it's linked to the ethics section below regarding data collection. So governance. So this is the section to explain who is going to be on your project and how you're going to manage the project. This isn't the section to explain why your team is the right team to deliver. This is all about grant management. So within the section, you can demonstrate elements of your responses in visual form too, as specified on the Funding Finder. And essentially, you're going to be including any evidence about advisory structures and consultation. You can provide a clear management plan and identify the team roles and responsibilities. This is where you'll highlight your partnerships as well and how you're planning to monitor your progress. And it's all about your appropriate governance and administration of the grant and how equality, diversity and inclusion is embedded. So the word limit for this section is fairly low to reflect the budget of the grant. This is quite a small project in comparison to a responsive mode grant or an SLOLA, for example, or strategic longer and larger grants. And it's we understand that your leadership team may be much smaller than a standard research grant, and we understand that that this needs to be reflected in the word count. So please do focus on structures and management plans and how the grant is going to be monitored in this section. So this is the section where you explain why your team is the right team to deliver this project. So this is where you will include the relevant experience to deliver the proposed work. So for example, the ability of your network manager to disseminate the funds within the existing network to maximize impact, how you've got the right balance and skills and expertise to cover the proposed work, that you've got the appropriate leadership and management skills to deliver the work and your approach to develop others, and then that you've contributed to developing a positive research environment and wider community. So this is also where you'll introduce your project partners as members of your team and explain why these project partners are beneficial to the project. For this section, we are implementing the narrative CV or resume for research and innovation. We do have guidance on the UKRI website on how to write this. I could probably spend an entire webinar going through this, so I'm not going to do that today. But as I said, there is guidance available on the UKRI website. But essentially, it just provides a better opportunity to demonstrate a breadth of research outputs that go beyond publication and highlight all of the amazing expertise and skills that your team members have, and to showcase that in a slightly different way. As I mentioned, we do also have an ethics and responsible research and innovation section. So this is a standard section for anything associated with networks or hubs. So what are the ethical and RRI implications and issues relating to the proposed work? And if you don't think you have any ethical or RRI issues, you need to explain why. So this is particularly relevant if you are collecting any data. So you need to highlight any legal and ethical considerations of collecting, releasing and storing the data, including consent, confidentiality, anonymization, security, and any other ethical considerations. So particularly strategies not to preclude further reuse of that data, and formal information standards that your proposed work will comply with. So you may also discard the sub-questions on animal usage, human participation, and genetically modified organisms if they don't apply to you. And of course, as I said, if you are collecting data, you need to make sure you are GDPR compliant. So here is where it's important to explain the resources and cost section and how to request the funds for your project. So it's important to note that assessors aren't looking for an incredibly detailed cost by line by line breakdown of all the project resources. Please just justify the application's more costly resources, such as the expected cost of the activities, the administrative support, any significant travel, any equipment that's going to be costing more than £10,000, any consumables beyond typical requirements, any facilities and infrastructure costs, and any collaboration costs that you've identified that are significant. So all costs associated with this project should be included under exceptions, and this is how we're going to be able to fund it at 100% FBC. So as I said, this includes all impact activities listed earlier and any salary requests for additional administrative support. So please don't include any direct or indirect costs as part of this application. So as I said, please don't provide incredible detailed costs or line by line. They just want you to demonstrate how the resources you anticipate needing for your proposed work are comprehensive, appropriate and justified, represent the optimal use of resources to achieve the intended outcomes, and that they maximise potential outcomes and impacts. So within these two sections, the project support, we ask that you provide your organisation support. So please submit a statement of support from your research organisation detailing why the proposed work is needed, and this can include any details about match funding and any support that they plan to provide for this project. If you are applying and you're not the principal investigator of the network, then please do include the support from that network lead. So for example, if you're the network manager, please ensure that you have network lead approval for your application to this project. And then within the project partners, we would like you to provide a letter of support from each of the project partners that you identify. So we have encouraged collaboration in consortia quite heavily, and this is where you include those collaborations and support letters. And we do require a formal collaboration agreement to be in place to make sure that the award can be made. Please do submit these as a single PDF, so compile them all into one document, and specific guidance on how to do this can be found on the funding service application itself. I just briefly want to cover the assessment process. As I said, we do have an expression of interest stage, but this isn't assessed. This is purely to help provide those collaborations and to help BBSRC Office determine what applications to expect. We will be hosting an independent panel consisting of external experts who will be reviewing the full proposals. And prior to this SIF panel, BBSRC will pre-screen the proposals to ensure they're within the scope of the funding opportunity. And you can find that within the what we're looking for section, and only proposals that fit the remit of this funding opportunity will progress to the expert sift. So with regards to timeline, we do aim to complete the assessment process within 2 months of receiving your application. And we do expect our panel meeting to take place at the end of July and award the funds in September. And we do ask that you start your projects by the 1st of October 2024. So for further information, please do read the funding finder page, which is here, Enhancing Equality, Diversity and Inclusion in BBSRC funded networks. And this is where you'll find all of the eligibility information, opportunity description, application questions and assessment criteria, which is also the same criteria we share with our panel members. And once this webinar is finished and we've finished the Q&A session, we'll also upload the FAQ, so frequently asked questions document. And we will be uploading the webinar recording to this page too. If you have any specific questions about your application and how to apply, please do contact our funding service colleagues on the email address listed here or by phone. And if you have any specific eligibility queries, please do submit a query to the EDI Networks call dedicated inbox listed here. And please submit an expression of interest so that we can handle these queries on a case-by-case basis. So thank you. We're willing to answer any questions that you might have. And of course, if you have any follow-up questions, please do email us. So I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you very much, Emily. Okay, we've had a couple of questions come through. If you've got any more while we're answering these, please just pop them in the Q&A function. So one has been answered already. Emily answered it live. How does a project partner submit an expression of interest? You do it in the same way that anyone would submit an expression of interest. There's a Word document that you can download from the website, the ECOI website, and then you submit that to the inbox, EDI Networks call at bbsrc.ukri.org. So there's that one. Okay, so the next question is, will the funding be for a maximum of 1 year, even if the existing network runs for more than 1 year? The answer is yes. It's for a maximum of 12 months of funding, minimum 3 months. Even if your network continues beyond that time, then because this is a pilot call, then that's the maximum duration of funding at the moment for this. Okay, got another question comes through. Can these funds be used to support consumables, for example, for short-term training exercise or knowledge exchange visit? Yes, absolutely. Emily, any more you want to say on that particular one?
No, I believe the knowledge exchange was in that list of activities that you can fund via this. And yeah, training exercises, absolutely. That's more than happy to fund that.
Okay, that's all the questions we've got through at the moment. I'll just give you another moment just to ask any more big or small questions. Don't be shy. Like I said, if you've got something very specific that you want to answer, not here, you can always send us an email as well. Do you have a web page listing all the BBSRC networks? No, we don't, but we have identified who all of our networks are and contacted them directly. So we've identified the project lead for those networks and identified them. If you think that you haven't been contacted or are not in the next week or so, please do contact us and check whether you're eligible or not. We're very happy to kind of, as Emily said, take it on a case-by-case basis and look at those networks. There may well be, for example, networks that are not led by BBSRC but are funded, co-funded by BBSRC that haven't yet been contacted. Okay, what communications can be expected after submitting an expression of interest, for example, introductions to networks, partnering opportunities? Okay, so if you submit an expression of interest, then we'd like you to give us permission to share your contact details with others that we think might be interested in partnering with you. So if we receive two expression of interest that are, for example, for project leads that we think are in similar areas and trying to achieve a similar thing, then we would possibly kind of suggest that you talk to each other and collaborate. There's no obligation to do that, but we're doing it in such a way that we want to fund, maximize the impact of our funding and fund a small number of relatively large networks. So you would hear from us on that. Similarly, if you're a partner and maybe not sure which network you might want to collaborate with, then we will try and put you in touch with someone. Emily, any more on that while I just look at the next one?
No, I think you covered that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Oh, lots of questions coming in now. Thank you. What about funding for scoping exercises, especially looking for policies on EDI across the region? So this is around what is included within the scope of the call. So yes, I think that would be relevant in this to understand what policies exist and maybe how they're implemented and how that might vary across different organisations. That could be an interesting thing to look at as part of your activities.
I think this is an example of identifying best practice as well, seeing what works in the community, and that's absolutely under the scope of this call.
Okay, so if the existing BBSRC network runs out before May 2025, but a project is completed before that deadline, will it still be eligible? Okay, so if your network, you need to have funding up until the end of March 2025, and then the network activities would need to be within the lifetime of your grant. So if your network runs until May, then the maximum duration would be whatever period that is up until May 2025. So yeah, it needs to be kind of contained within the existing grant.
And I recognise that obviously we've said the minimum lifetime can be 3 months, and we've asked for you to start your projects by the 1st of October. So I can understand why that might seem like that's a much longer period of time compared to that minimum duration. But that's to give you a bit of leeway, because often, there might be delays to starting a project. You obviously have the Christmas break in there as well. So it's just to kind of account for any delays that might be encountered and make sure that you can deliver on the project, because at the end of the day, it's value for money and ensuring that you can deliver on those activities. So I understand that confusion there, but we do need you to have funding in place until the 31st of March for that reason.
Okay, so we've got another eligibility question here, I think. So do all PIs and co-Is from the existing network have to be an applicant for this funding, or only a few members can apply on behalf of the network? Yeah, so it would be the latter. So you wouldn't necessarily expect all members of the network to be leads on this EDI network activity side of things. You would expect one or more of those individuals to lead, and then they can draw on other expertise from across the network. So as Emily said, you can include researchers within that, or research technical professionals as well as co-leads.
Yeah. So on that as well, if you are a member of a network, but you're not necessarily in that leadership team, but you think that this call could be particularly relevant to your network and a really exciting opportunity, then please do encourage your network leads to apply. But you could, and if you do want to apply yourself, you just need to make sure you have that network approval. So that's incredibly important.
Do groups who are in receipt of BBSRC funding outside of research, for example, FTMA, so our flexible talent mobility accounts, or impact acceleration accounts, can they be project leads? So that would be, I think we would need to look at that on a case-by-case basis, depending on the size of that award and whether they have a network manager. So these EDI networks need to have someone in place who is already kind of in that network manager kind of function, so that you've got that infrastructure and you've got that support in place. So whether those particular awards have someone like that in place, we need to look on a case-by-case basis. I don't know if you know any more on that, Emily, on a particular award.
I think it would be useful for you to submit an EOI, an expression of interest, so we can get all those details together.
Certainly, yeah, I totally agree. Are you expecting us to include EDI experts on the project team? Well, I guess it might depend what you mean by an EDI network, EDI expert, sorry. So I think we would expect you to have certainly individuals who've got lived experience or have a professional or personal understanding of the challenges and the potential solutions that the activities can support. This is, I guess, potentially where the role of project partners comes in, is bringing in people who have either directly or indirectly have experience of understanding what those challenges are, and again, what those activities could be to help overcome them. So yeah, you'd need to have some kind of expertise in terms of understanding what it is that is needed within the network. Don't necessarily need someone whose job title is EDI expert. Okay, a couple more questions. So someone says, thanks, Emily, this is a really great idea. I wondered what stage the evidence and metrics project at Roslyn is at. Are there any outputs? So that project has not just started, it's only just been awarded. So that and the other institute projects that Emily mentioned, they're all happening over the next 12 months. They've only just been awarded. But we wanted to give you those as examples, just to give you an indication really of the sort of scale that we're looking at, and the fact that these are looking at specific culture challenges, but across all of our 8 sponsored institutes. So that gives you an idea of kind of the scale and the scope of the call. To qualify for consortia application, how many minimum number of partners do we need? So there isn't a minimum or maximum number of partners. So the size of the grant is £50,000 to £100,000. So it needs to be a relatively large scale network that is going to support, you know, a reasonable number of people from minority groups across your network or networks. So the number of partners would need to be kind of in line with that, basically. So it could be a single research organisation application, or it could be a consortia of multiple partners. I think it would probably depend on the subject matter and the number of people that you're looking at. If you're looking at one particular EDI characteristic, for example, ethnic minority, that might be different from an application that is looking at maybe multiple characteristics, so anyone in any minority group, and the number of partners would probably reflect that as well. If you're not sure, drop us a line and we'll talk to you in more detail about that. Okay, final question, unless any more come in. Are there any restrictions on the number of UK versus international partners? Okay, so I guess the same answer would apply really. So no restriction on the minimum or maximum number of partners. We might need to get back to you on the international side of things, but certainly our normal eligibility rules would apply in terms of who can apply as a lead, and then partners is very much kind of wider, and there's much more scope to introduce, you know, whichever organisations or individuals would enhance your application and enhance your knowledge within your network. All right. Let's give you another moment if there's any more questions come through. Hopefully that's answered them. If we've not answered your questions fully, or not quite answered as you expect, please drop us a line and we can always take it up again by email. Okay, so there's no more questions coming. So, excuse me. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to pause and we'll stop the recording, and then after we move on to the next section, we'll move into breakout rooms. So we'll stop the recording now.